This call is being recorded.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lynette with LynetteDavis.com, and I'm super excited because this is Black History Month, and I have been trying to figure out how I can honor Black History Month, at the same time honor my commitment to delivering amazing content to you that's all about mental health and mental wellness. So after really thinking about it, I decided to reach out to my good friend or mentor and colleague, Dr. Keisha, who has decided to come on to this line and help me to celebrate Black History now, while also just giving you some amazing and, I should say, informative resources about self-care, which is definitely a form of mental wellness. So, Dr. Keisha, welcome. Thank you so much for coming on and speaking to my audience.
Thank you, Lynette. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is you do?
Sure. So I have two fabulous jobs that I love. I get to work as an educator and help shape the minds of our young American college students. My specialty is sociology of race and ethnicity. And I also get to work as a productivity coach and help professional women create more time and energy so that they can accomplish all of their goals that are most important to them. So in both areas of my job, my time and energy is focused on helping people to flourish, helping people to create lives that are meaningful to them, where they're achieving at their optimal level, and then where we as a society are able to achieve because there are individuals within our society that are flourishing. So there's been a lot of research done on how we can rank human development and national development, and how come income and GDP isn't necessarily the most important attribute of a healthy society, and measuring human potential, because that's our most powerful resource. So I work on developing human potential both at the individual level and at this collective level.
Awesome. Wow. So I'm curious, how do you go from teaching younger people to wanting to teach adults? Most people usually stick to one certain population, but you and your two capacities are able to touch multiple populations with this. What made you decide to go that route?
Well, many of us are people who can't be confined by one particular career. I am the product of a liberal arts college, and I remember when I went in to school, at our orientation, they told us the job that we will do probably hasn't been created yet. And the philosophy was really around developing your own interests, developing your unique skill set, developing your capacity, and creating opportunities for yourself and other people. So the time where you go to school and learn how to make widgets and then have a job making widgets, that kind of economy is really far gone. We live in a knowledge-based economy now where things are changing so fast and people are creating opportunities for themselves and creating that future. So I've never thought about my life as I'm going to do one specific job. I thought about it as how can I create a career that allows me to express my interests. I love to learn. I'm obsessed with personal development for myself and for others, and I'm committed to helping people to create more meaningful lives and helping to promote social change so that we have a society that's grounded in community and that's grounded in the ethics of love and justice. And so these careers that I've built for myself are really the manifestation of who I am and what my unique purpose is in the world. So they might seem desperate to other people, but to me, they go together so well because they exist within me.
Awesome. And you brought up some great things that I think will totally tie into this conversation, because you said it was all kind of a manifestation of yourself, and that's what this is about, self-love and being able to balance all the various pieces that do seem like they're separate, but they are one fit, they're one thing. So with that being said, because you kind of gave us like a quick summary, but I want people to understand how this all fits in. So how do you define self-love, and where does self-care fit into that definition, especially when you are when you're making a career a manifestation of pieces of yourself?
Well, I think of love as cherishing something. You cherish it because you see it as something unique, something that is irreplaceable, so its value cannot be quantified. And my image of love is the image of, visualizing yourself holding a newborn baby. I had the pleasure of being there when my youngest niece was born. And as soon as the doctor caught her, she passed her to me, and I got to be the first person to hold her. And it was such an amazing experience because I have this very precious, precious soul in my arms, and I realized, I have to be very gentle. I'm feeling all kinds of protection for her, and I feel warm, and I'm affirming her. And she hasn't done anything. I mean, she's not even 2 minutes old. So she didn't have to prove that she was worthy or show me that she's smart or do anything for me to have this tremendous love and cherishing of her. She just exists. And because she is here, I already recognize her worth and her value. And so I think of self-care as treating ourselves like that young baby, right? Like we love ourselves, we nurture ourselves, we protect ourselves, and not because we've accomplished anything. It's because this is who we are. We are already people of tremendous value that are unique and that is irreplaceable. And so it's not we deserve this because we've achieved this goal or hit this income or this education level. We deserve this because of who we are. And when we can love ourselves in that way, then we do want to nurture ourselves by eating healthy. We'll give ourselves pleasure, be it taking a nice warm bath or carving out time to read a book. The idea is that we're going to treat ourselves as someone that we want to nurture and protect and express that kind of cherishing to.
Great point. And you already gave some great examples of practicing self-care, because sometimes we think about that and we're thinking, man, we have so many things that cost so much money to take care of ourselves, but just taking a nice bath or reading a good book are ways to practice self-care. How do you practice self-care, and why do you think self-care is so important specifically for Black women?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, and I'm glad you pointed out the self-care. I love massages, and so my immediate go-to is, I'm going to get a massage. That's how I'm going to treat myself. But I can't always afford the money or the time to do that. So self-care can't just be something that exists that other people have to do for us. We have to have kind of a wide repertoire of things that we do for ourselves to love ourselves and to enhance our capacity. And it should be a regular part of our life. So for me, I really spend a lot of time developing a morning ritual and an evening ritual that's grounded in self-care. And those rituals are the bookends to my day. They give me the energy and the focus that I need to get the most out of my day and then prepare me for the next day. So in the morning, I wake up at 6 a.m. As soon as I get up, I do my 30 minutes of exercise. Then I make a healthy breakfast smoothie for myself. I move into my daily devotion and meditation. And in the evening of my day, I spend time journaling before I go to bed and looking at what my next day is going to be. So all of those are very small things that don't take up a lot of time, but they are the kinds of things that really feed my soul and enhance my capacity to be able to give to other people. So when we're not doing self-care and we're constantly giving but not receiving, it actually creates a cycle of burnout, and we eventually become resentful of the people who we see as just taking everything from us, and why aren't they giving? But it's really our responsibility to give to ourselves, and that includes taking time to celebrate our personal achievements, our life achievements. You know, I spend a whole month celebrating my birthday, and not because I'm vain, but because I think it is important that we recognize that we are creating our lives, and we should create a life that is worthy of celebration, a life that reflects our values, and that we take time to enjoy that experience. So I think it's even more important to think about as a Black woman why we have to make self-care a priority. Black women have been stereotyped as being the quote-unquote superwoman, and I don't think of that as a positive stereotype. And this is a stereotype that we've carried with us since slavery. So during slavery, Black women were characterized as strong as a man, and that was part of the reason why it didn't matter that they were women. They were still out in the field working the same hours as men. They would still get beaten with the same whip as men. And I was even at this slavery museum this weekend, and they had a picture that showed when a pregnant Black woman who was enslaved was beaten, they didn't want to damage her baby because that was their wealth. So they would dig a ditch and have her put her belly in the ditch and lay down so that they could still beat her back. So there's this idea that Black women are not delicate. They don't need anything to take care of themselves. They can do it all themselves. They're just as strong as a man. And this is what Sojourner Truth's speech, "Ain't I a Woman?" is all about, right? Like, there's this idea that women are delicate and need a system of chivalry to protect them, and they need someone to provide for them. But Black women never need those kinds of things because essentially Black women aren't women. They're kind of quasi-men. And the problem is that we've lived with this stereotype so much that we've actually kind of internalized it, and we become our own harsh taskmasters. And so we don't give ourselves to time to feel tired or to be sad or to feel like, I can't do this. This is too much for me. I do need a break. And we have this idea of, no, you don't need a break. You're supposed to always be doing something. You're supposed to always be providing. You don't need people to help you. You're supposed to do this all your own. And I really do see that as a replacement of, the white overseer with ourselves, and treating ourselves as harshly and dehumanizing as that white overseer did during slavery.
Wow. That's extremely powerful right there. And it makes me think about the term resilient, because when we think about the effects of slavery, people are so fast to say, well, that was so long ago, and what does that have to do with today? But you just gave a great example of it, how certain things transfer over to the next generation, And we now have this mindset that we have tricked ourselves into believing that we are super when that was not how it was. That was for somebody else's benefit originally.
Exactly.
To make us forget who we are. So I love that. And, speaking of resilience, what role do you think self-care played in resilience shown in Black women throughout history?
Well, I think self-care is absolutely essential for us to survive and be resilient, both at an individual level and at a collective level. So I love this quote from Audre Lorde, who's a famous Black woman, writer and activist. And she says that caring for myself is not self-indulgence. It is self-preservation. And it is that act that is an act of political warfare. So I love that she's able to help us see that caring for ourselves is taking a political statement and saying, yes, we are human. Yes, we are worthy of dignity and care and compassion, and we give that to ourselves first. That's not a luxury that we have to earn once we've accomplished something. It is what is our birthright and what we are required to have. And when we're able to do that kind of self-care and nurturing, then that will enable us to sustain a life of nurturing others. So I've already talked about how many people, and Black women in particular, are in these situations where we're constantly giving to other people. We're giving to our children, we're giving to our families, we're giving in our jobs, we're giving in our communities. In terms of volunteerism, Black women we're at the top. You don't go anywhere. Churches don't run without Black women. Movements don't happen without Black women. Schools don't function without Black women. We are making valuable contributions to the lives of other people. And yet, when we do that without self-care, it leads to burnout. It leads to premature death. There are so many Black women who are struggling with issues of chronic hypertension, heart disease, diabetes, being overweight, and all of those things are lifestyle issues that actually compromise how long we live and how well we're able to live. And it even compromises how effective we can be in giving to our families and giving to our communities. Because if we're not present, we can't continue to give. And if we're too sick to get up or we can't walk really far, or, there's work that we're not able to do because our health has been compromised. And our health has been compromised because we haven't done the work of caring for ourselves on a daily basis. There are mothers who, wouldn't dare treat their children the way they treat their own body. And that's a problem, because in the long term, your effectiveness is really going to be grounded in how well you can care for yourself. And caring for yourself is a way of loving yourself, modeling to those around you that they too are worthy of love and care and compassion. It allows you to do your own work that you think is so important that you have to do. You get to do that longer. You get to enjoy it more, and you get to be more impactful. So I really see, if our focus is on Black women, and particularly Black women who are interested in building our communities and building families, that self-care is absolutely essential for you to accomplish that kind of goal.
Definitely. That was so much to ponder there, because so many times it's kind of like, what's a good way of thinking about it? This might be a little bit drastic, but sometimes, when somebody smokes a cigarette and they can smoke a cigarette for years and they don't think anything about maybe those commercials where somebody died of lung cancer and they're like, oh, that's so rare. And so they continue with it. And I feel like sometimes we don't think about stress that way. Like, stress is a cigarette, and we go, well, stress is a part of life. But not realizing that stress literally does kill. it does take from your life. And the importance of not only, not embracing the cigarette, but my example here of stress, but actually wanting to develop a practice and a lifestyle that, one, you understand that you're worthy of without having to work for to earn it, and two, that you can embrace so that you can actually not only try to avoid, a unfulfilled life full of stress, but a life where you can actually be happy,
Yeah.
So,
yeah, because
awesome.
when you talk about stress killing, it kills us physically, but it also kills our relationships, right? Like, there's so much conflict in families and communities and at work, and that really is itself a product of stress, and it kills our productivity. Like, we think staying up all those extra hours is actually going to help us get the job done, but it's actually undermining our ability to be productive and effective. We don't think clearly, we're not doing our best, and we don't reap the financial rewards of doing our best work. So I love your analogy of stress as the cigarette that, we're doing on a daily basis without even recognizing all of the damage that it's doing to us.
Awesome. Yeah, I was like, let me try to think of something. Okay, I'm going to work with that.
Very good.
So you brought up something else that made me think about, now it was kind of two sides of the same coin. You were talking about the things that we do to ourselves, trying to keep up with certain things, giving to the church and giving to society. And it made me think about how women, and I am sticking with Black women for this particular conversation, deal every day with different, a term we call microaggressions, and I'm pretty sure you can actually describe that a whole heck of a lot better than I would. And when I think of that term, microaggressions, I think about it coming from the outside, but I never actually put the two together to think that sometimes we do microaggressions against ourselves as well. So how do you think we can apply this self-love and this self-care, even if it, is kind of a rebel of sorts, a rebel of sorts to get back to our true nature, when faced with these daily microaggressions, both from the outside as well as from within?
Yes. I think of it like our immune system, right? So there are germs all around us. And sometimes we get sick, and some people are in that environment and don't get sick. And the difference is the quality of the immune system. The immune system is able to take those things that come into your body that are meant to harm you and process them and expel them from your body without them doing that damage or as much damage. So given the fact that we live in a racist and sexist society, it's a given. There are going to be daily assaults on our dignity, on our humanity. That's out there. And so it's absolutely essential that we practice self-care regularly, because that is our immune system. That is how we are able to keep ourselves healthy and to keep ourselves functioning in a dysfunctional context. So when we are practicing self-care, we're doing two things. The first thing we're doing is reminding ourselves of our own inherent dignity and value. We can accomplish that by, connecting with other people who are like us and have experienced this pain. And it's like, okay, I'm not crazy. This just happened, right? And they're like, yeah, that happened. That's a kind of self-care, because when we are exposed to these things in such a pervasive way, it can make you feel like, I deserve this. And so having communities of people that remind you you're valuable, you're not what they say that you are, you deserve more, that powerful support community actually does help to heal us emotionally, spiritually, and physically. And there's a lot of research around the physical benefits that come with being in supportive communities. Also, prayer, spirituality, music, art, all of these things are things that can remind us of our own value and get the thoughts that are running around outside in the society that says that we're not valuable, we don't deserve 5-minute break, we don't deserve to make more money, we don't deserve to be treated with dignity. All of those ideas that exist out there, these are the ways that our immune system of self-care actually expels them from our bodies without them becoming parts of us and taking root in our minds. So being able to preserve our minds through self-care is a really important benefit of that. The second thing that is a really important benefit of self-care is that self-care empowers us to act in our own best interest. So when we publicly speak out about the harm that has happened to us, that is a form of self-care. When we get out of those hostile relationships or environments, that is a form of self-care. And so back to Audre Lorde's quote, where she says that self-care is self-preservation in an act of political warfare, that there is a political stance that comes with saying, you know what, I do deserve more. And I'm going to treat myself with value and respect, and I am going to actively challenge anything that stands against that. And so I think that when we're engaging in self-care, we're able to endure the microaggressions that we get on a daily basis, but we're also empowered to collectively resist that system that is creating those daily microaggressions.
Good point. And when I heard that last part, I said, "There's that sociology major."
Always sneaking it in.
And I can say that because, as some of my blog readers know, I was also a sociology major. Although I didn't go all the way like Dr. Keisha here, but I remember my roots. Awesome. You know, there's so much here. I get to see and read so much because I'm online all day, and I see different sides of women being vulnerable, as a way of reaching out, and then women being vulnerable because they're so hurt and they really feel like they're alone and they feel ugly and despised, and it breaks my heart. You know, it honestly does. So I'm so grateful that we can have conversations like this, and I hope that there will always be more and more conversations so we can at least start with, no, you're not alone, you're not crazy. Because that is, you know, that is definitely like, is it just me? You know, what's going on? And then to take that a step further and reinforce, like, it's not just you, it's us, it's the attack on us. And this is what we can do about it. So I think that Audre Lorde quote was actually perfect. So let me ask you this, because let me take my hand from over my mouth so people can hear me. Let me ask you this. Sometimes, and I've had this when I first started my advocacy work, and I realized now that I had been doing advocacy work long before I publicly declared I was doing advocacy work. But you know, when I first started out, it came from a place of me wanting to help others and never thinking actually about myself. That one hasn't come down the line. But I always felt like everything was a reaction. We're attacked and then we react.
Mhm.
So through a self-care practice, how can we explore what it might mean for us to thrive and not just defend and not just survive?
That is so important to ask ourselves. And that's why I started our conversation talking about flourishing, because flourishing is the concept that we as social scientists use to talk about human development at its optimal potential. That what we really want to do is create a society not just where people can eat and have a roof over their head and be able to go to the doctor, but all those are absolutely important. But we want to be able to create an environment where people will reach their optimal potential and where our societies collectively will reach its optimal potential. And the kinds of things that we measure don't really get at the goal. What we're measuring is what are the symptoms of inequality. And you can start to close that gap, but still not create a society where we're all flourishing, right? You could close the gap by bringing everybody down to the bottom. And so that's equality, but it's not flourishing. It's not the goal that we want everyone to be able to develop their optimum level. And that's what flourishing is really about. And so in order, you can't create something that you cannot visualize. Right? So we have to have a clear vision of what it means to thrive, to flourish, both on an individual level and on a collective level. And I'm a big science fiction fan, so I'm going to nerd out on you for a minute. I know you love science fiction too, so this is, I think. But part of what I love about Afrofuturism is that it does exactly that. It helps us to envision a future where Black people are not just present, but are flourishing and are creating the valuable things that give life to our society and to us as an individual level. So much of science fiction, books, movies actually have no Black people in them, right? Like it's as if in the future something happens and we're just dead. We're just not even present. And so to have science fiction movie where a Black person is actually still alive in the future, some would say as, okay, so that's progress, right? We're there. But if we're marginal to the story, if we're not important, if we're not creating life, then, that's just survival. But flourishing is about how do we thrive? How do we become the creators and sustainers of life? And what Afrofuturism does is actually take that perspective and allow us to envision a future where we are creating life. We are sustaining life. We're not just trying to get by. And it shows people, Black people who have self-determination, who are shaping the destiny of themselves as individuals and shaping the destiny of their world. And so then we become not objects, but subjects. So that's what's happening in the literature and visual arts around Afrofuturism. But we can take that power and we can create self-care rituals that show us a very clear vision of ourselves, me as an individual, you as an individual, and then us as a group, as a community, flourishing. And as we get that vision, then we have something compelling for us to move forward to. So I don't care if you create vision boards, you do affirmations, you read poetry, but we all need a way of actually visualizing what is our life going to look like when we are at our optimum level, not just professionally, but in every area of our life. How do those things work together? How are we using our gifts and our talents in a way that brings joy to us, that actually builds our legacy in the world, something that we're really proud of and we're able to achieve our highest professional and personal goals? So when we see ourselves with this ability to have and be more, We're not just focusing on how am I going to pay these bills at the end of the month and how am I going to get by. And I don't mean to disrespect that, because there are a lot of people who are in that reality because that's the way that society is organized. But we have to think beyond that because getting by will never allow us to flourish. Getting by is just going to recreate this same system that we're all in agreement is not a good system and is hurting us and other people like us. So once we see ourselves as people who can have more, who can be more, then we begin to accept the responsibility of creating that change. And it's a responsibility because we have to recognize we're not victims. We all have some resources at our disposal. And so, the adage of what's in your hand, take what's in your hand and use it to create this reality that you are envisioning. And so we're not creating this future vision of ourselves and our community to prove that we're worthy. Goal attainment is not about once we get to this point, once we have all these Black people with college degrees, that'll prove that we're just as smart. That's not the goal. That's not our objective. We already know that we are just as smart. And so the goal becomes, how can we create something that nourishes ourselves individually and collectively in a way that affirms our values and our goals? And as we do that, then we're able to actually expand and invite other people to do the same thing, right? So people are not going to follow what you say. They're going to follow what you are doing. And when you are flourishing, all those people around you start looking like, wow, how is that? You're not living at the same level that we are, but you're right here, and I can see you, and I can touch you, and I know this is possible. And so your success, and again, I'm not talking about success solely in financial terms, because that's a very small part of success. It's flourishing this whole life. But as you live that whole life, you actually create new opportunities for other people to start expanding and flourishing themselves. And this becomes our legacy. Because right now we're living in a time when, as a nation, people are getting all into this self-protective and defensiveness, and that's not the same as self-care, right? They know they're hurting, and their idea is, well, I have to make sure nobody else gets anything, and I got to get the most of it. And that attitude, it causes smaller and smaller circles. But when you flourish, you actually create bigger and bigger circles and connections to other people. So it works well on an individual level, but it actually also works well on the collective level. And I guess that's why my focus in both my teaching and in my coaching work is around helping people to flourish, because there is a connection between your individual personal development and social change. And I'm all about personal and social change, and flourishing is the way in which we're able to actualize that.
Awesome. I love that. There were so many wisdom nuggets right there. And I was totally geeking out when you said Afrofuturism. So I'm like, well, I will definitely put some sources on the blog, because I know that you have some authors probably up your sleeve that you like to share. So I'm going to definitely put that there, because
excellent.
we joke about how they say, I can't remember the phrase exactly, something about art is a reflection of life, but at the same time art creates life. I think that's what the phrase was. So I think it was so interesting that you brought that up, because sometimes we do need to see that art and understand the representation that it gives us that we needed to see.
Yeah.
I had somebody say it before, and it's kind of like my favorite motto right now: representation matters. And representation in art form is definitely one of my favorites, as since I am a mental wellness advocate, and I happen to love mental wellness through the form of the arts and those.
Mhm.
But so awesome. So before we go, you had started to say something about flourishing, and that's how you do it in your work. And then you also earlier said something about celebrating your birthday for the whole month, which I thought was awesome and amazing. And I know that you came out with a book not too long ago that kind of incorporated some of the concepts that you were saying. So can you tell us a little bit about that book before we head out?
Sure. So the book is titled Your Life as a Celebration, Accomplishing Your Goals with Less Stress and More Joy. And basically, I'm trying to speak to this conundrum that many women are in, where they have too much work to do, not enough time. They're feeling pulled and competing demands between work and family and giving to their volunteer opportunities, and everything seems too important to let go of anything, and yet there's no time for themselves, and they still have goals that they want to accomplish, career goals, personal goals, but they can't even figure out how am I going to have the time to reach for something more when I'm just on this treadmill trying to keep up. And even with all the work that I'm doing trying to keep up, I still find myself falling behind. And so I really wanted to have a very simple piece that I could share with them that would help them to begin this process of envisioning a life that is a fuller life, an optimal life for them, a life where they flourish. And then I take them through step by step. This is what you can do to create that for yourself. And so the strategies that I use in the book is focus. And it starts with F for fixate on your desired objective, O for outline the skills and talents that you need to develop, C for create rituals of success that allow you to develop those daily habits, and U for use your self-knowledge and past failures to your advantage, and then S for share with others and build a support system. So it's all the things that science has taught us that we need to do in order to effectively set our goals and achieve our goals. And what I'm trying to help people understand is that you don't have to work harder, you actually have to work smarter. So you don't have to be totally stressed out and feel like that shows that I'm actually being productive. The stress is counterproductive to you. But you can have the life that you want if you learn how to use the science of goal setting to your advantage. So I have various chapters that focus on, whether you have health goals or relationship goals or career goals. I give examples for how you can apply this method to any area of your life. And, I would encourage the readers to check it out. I think that you can get a first chapter free on Amazon Kindle. And if you can't, just email me and I'll send you the first chapter for free, because I really just want the information out there. And it's my way of trying to support so many women who are feeling overwhelmed and not living a life of flourishing.
Awesome. Dr. Keisha, thank you so much for coming on and just speaking about this topic. It was definitely near and dear to my heart. And it was so important for me to bring both self-love and Black History Month in February, because there has been a split with me. 1 year I just focused on self-love, and then another year I just focused on Black History Month. I'm like, okay, I need to be able to bring this all together.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad that you did, to show that it's not mutually exclusive, and
exactly.
In the words of the famous orator James Brown, say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud. That is self-love, and it is a very radical act. So thank you for reminding us of the importance of self-love and of the connection between the individual and the collective.
Awesome, awesome. And everyone, thank you so much for listening. If you are listening to this on YouTube, I'm going to give you the link to the actual blog post where you can get all the resources that were mentioned during this recording, as well as Dr. Keisha's contact information so that you can get access to that free first chapter. So until the next time, everyone, take care.
Bye.